Welcome to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Mm, mm. Ooh, y'all, I smell something cooking tonight. Yes, I do. Now, look, check this out. According to Encyclopedia Britannica, the term soul food was first used in print in 1964 during the rise of Black Pride, baby, Black Pride. Yes, but soul food itself originated after emancipation when Black people in the South expanded on the meager diet of foods that had been provided to them by slave owners, a diet that consisted of whatever food was available and inexpensive. During the Great Migration, Black families brought that Southern food tradition with them as they spread out across the country. It is now 160 years after emancipation, and we're still eating a lot of the same fatty foods despite new nutritional and scientific information that most of what we eat could be attributed to many of our underlying health conditions. Well, tonight, the business of being Black is our attachment to soul food. Is it as bad as they say it is for us? Because I'm beginning to think this is a conspiracy to get us to stop eating soul food. Now, please welcome celebrity chef Carlos Brown. Hey, Carlos, Chef Carlos.
Hello, Tammy. How you doing?
Beautiful, award-winning filmmaker of the PBS documentary Soul Food Junkies. Y'all have got to watch this. Byron Hurt. Hi, Byron.
What's going on, Tammi Mac? How are you?
I'm good. And the owner of one of the best and most legendary soul food spots in my hometown of Houston, Texas. This is it, soul food chef Craig Joseph. Hey, Craig.
Hey, Tammy, how are you?
So let's get down to business here when it comes to eating with Black folk. Why should Black people care about soul food, period? Why should Black people care about soul food?
Well, Tammi Mac, is very simple. Soul food is a part of our culinary tradition. We created soul food. Soul food comes from as far back as West Africa, the Senegambia region. We brought the southern, what became the southern tradition of cooking to the Americas from Africa. And so it's a part of our legacy. It's a part of our heritage. It's a part of who we are. And so we should care about soul food because it's our cultural birthright. But not only that, it's the food that helps to sustain us.
Craig, why should Black people care about soul food?
Well, it goes, like you said, it goes back to slavery, and that was one way that we brought families together because we worked. Our ancestors worked all week, and they got together on Sundays, and that was that time to unite as a family, and they kept families together. And I think it's great that we still have soul food today because it still shows that family environment that we've always been used to.
Chef Carlos, get into it.
I say it goes a little deeper than just the food itself. The soul food that I know came from a different place. It did descend from someplace, but it came from the heart. And I think that the heart is where it is that makes it so special. And that's what my grandmother, who taught me, coming from the Gullah culture, that's where it came from, the heart. They had a heart for whatever to put on the table. And whatever they ate was also inside their heart. So it meant more than just something that goes in our stomach.
But to clarify things, they wasn't eating hearts, right?
Well, no, they wasn't eating the heart, but they ate from the heart. So the soul is really, it's the heart of what they was eating. I mean, they took what they had to eat, and they made what they wanted. And whatever it was special, so that's really what it is.
So Byron, when you mentioned at the top of the show, I talk about how soul food basically originated in America after emancipation. We took it and made it a culinary art here in America. But then we also, the origins of soul food also began through the lack of food that we were given when we were slaves. But you mentioned you took it all the way back to Africa. So let's talk about the African contribution to soul food, because I don't believe that many people know that there's an African attachment to soul food.
Well, there absolutely is. And when I first started doing research for my film, Soul Food Junkies, that's one of the things that I learned very quickly is that many of the slaves, or the enslaved Africans, I should say, who were brought from Africa to the Americas, were brought over for very specific reasons. They had certain culinary skills that were necessary in certain regions of the South, like South Carolina, for example, the Low Country in South Carolina, where they were very proficient at picking rice. That was a skill that came from West Africa. There are certain dishes that come from from the west coast of Africa, like okra, yams, and other dishes that we refer to now as soul food. But these were dishes and culinary traditions that came directly from Africa.
So let's talk about this. What is soul food? And I mean that in a literal sense. And maybe Craig, you can get in on this answer. Like literally, what is soul food? Can you give us a menu of what equals to soul food?
Oxtails, chitlins, ham hocks, smothered pork chops, collard greens, black-eyed peas, yams, mustard greens, of course, cornbread. Then you would top it off with your dessert, sweet potato pie, tea cakes, because we couldn't have the access
I remember tea
cake
cakes.
mix. Yeah, we didn't have access to cake mix, so they made tea cakes for dessert, and so we was always being innovative.
What are tea cakes made of, if not?
Well, you have your dough. You make your dough, you roll it out, but it's mixed. It's like a cookie. With the cinnamon and sugar, and you roll your dough out, and you basically just make round circles about the size of a small salsa, and that would be. I don't think cake.
There is a woman alive today who can make a tea cake, because everybody who used to make tea cakes, they're gone now. They're gone. They're gone.
Yeah, but fortunately enough, my mother-in-law, she left a recipe with my wife, and then now she's taught my daughter and my son, and we had the best tea cakes this side of heaven. So people line up every day just to come get tea cakes from us. So tea cakes still exist.
Now look, I don't deny, Craig, that you have the best tea cakes in heaven. But all I'm saying is, before y'all got a hold of that recipe, right? It's still it's something about how the original recipe creator made it that you can never touch. And that's that heart that Chef Carlos is talking about. Recipes never stay the same. You can press on the recipe, but the heart, they're going to always put an extra little teaspoon of brown sugar in it or something, or extra little that ain't going to be on the recipe. You understand what I'm saying? Chef Carlos, you know what I'm talking about.
There's no recipe. There's no recipe for it. It's just it really does come from the heart. And I believe earlier we were talking about Africa. I'm from South Carolina originally. And so being born in South Carolina, and we didn't just, we grew rice. Rice grew in South Carolina. So it wasn't something that, was something we tried to create. When the descendants came from West Africa, which we call the Gullah people, and most people call us Gullah Geechee. When they came from the Gullah Geechee culture, they came with nothing, no money in their pockets. They had to take what they had and make what they want. So they grew and they fished and they caught shrimp, and that's where shrimp and grits come from. And so all those things happened because those people went and hunt for their food and made it possible. So yeah, all those great soul food that we talk about, it comes because they made it happen. They hunt for it. And the taste, it wasn't a recipe. The recipe was, this flavor tastes good to the heart. And so that's what we came up with.
Let me tell you, it's interesting we're doing a show on soul food tonight, because this is how popular soul food is today. I don't know if you all are familiar with the television show Chopped that comes on the Food Network, but the basket in Chopped just this week included chitlins and collard greens.
No.
I think it's really important to know that soul food was originally like just Southern food, right? Well, once it got here to the Americas, it was Southern food, and it was food that enslaved Africans cooked for their masters, cooked for, their masters' guests, right? And it was food that everyone in the South enjoyed. It didn't become soul food, as you mentioned, until the Black Power movement, right? When soul became a political term, right? And so soul food is not something that only Black people or people from African descent enjoy. It's also enjoyed by people around the globe.
That's a great point, Byron. So then, how is it then it turned into ours? How did we gain possession of it?
Flavor. We have flavor, and I think that's the difference. And even now, as you mentioned, they are doing it now on chops. It's almost like an art. It was art to us, and it's like a forgotten art, but yet everybody enjoyed it around the world. Everybody's trying to do it. But with us, we brought a little more flavor. We brought a little more taste to it, and put a little more grandmothers and mothers inside of it. And I think that made the difference. As Byron was saying, it's enjoyed everywhere. But now everybody's like, oh, let's jump on this soul food thing because it's not going anywhere.
It's kind of like our music. Actually, it's like our music comes from the soul. Most Black people don't read sheet music from books. You know what I mean? Like we're self-taught, and and the music just plays from what we feel in our soul. And that's what you're saying, Chef Carlos. The food, we season it to our soul. We season it from our heart. Like, I think it might need a little bit more of that. Bang, bang.
Yes,
okay.
yes.
And we're going to be right back talking about this soul food on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul, because I'm interested in knowing how come white people can't make it. I'm gonna ask the chefs that when we return on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul.
All right.
Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul, where tonight we are talking to Craig Joseph, chef at This Is It in Houston, Texas, soul food restaurant. Chef Carlos Brown is here with us, and PBS documentary writer Byron Hurt is here. And I have to say that Incog, I'm going to our soulmates real quick, says, "Oh, soul food junkies, loved that documentary." That's coming directly from our soulmates here. So they're watching you, Byron. They're watching you. And let's talk about soul food tradition and its relevance to Black culture, identity. What does soul food continue to be, or rather, why does soul food continue to be a dominant part of our culture? Why?
I think that Black people have a very strong emotional connection to soul food. Many of us grow up eating soul food. Soul food is connected to special events, holidays, birthdays, other moments in our lives that make us really connected to it from an emotional standpoint, and probably to a physiological standpoint as well. I mean, we develop a palate and a taste for it that's very difficult to let go of, right? That's why it's so hard for people to change their diet if they want to change their diet and eat things that are not flavored in the same way that they're used to when they were a young person growing up, or that they have grown accustomed to tasting in terms of their food.
Why do you think, Craig?
When you think about,
let me preface that, Craig, by saying This Is It has been around since what? the 1950s?
1959.
1959 to 2021, your restaurant has obviously thrived. No restaurant really stays open for that long a time, and particularly an independent restaurant that isn't a franchise or a chain. So there is something to say about the development, or rather the attachment of soul food to Black folks. So why is it?
Again, when I said it earlier, that how it brings us together as a culture. When you come to This Is It, and you can see just the customers there, how they get together. Strangers become close to each other because of the food that we prepare and the way we do it. It's one thing that's unique about soul food is that, my grandfather used to cook. I never saw him use a measuring cup or anything like that. It was a gift. And I think as Black people, we've always had a gift to do things of quality, no matter what it was. And so when you put that, like Chef Carlos said, that love into what you're doing, the people feel that love, and it's a way to keep us together. It's a conversation piece. You talk about the things that you've been through, and it keeps us together as a race.
I agree. Soul food definitely has a nostalgic value to it, without a doubt. I still go to Sizzler, and I don't like a thing at Sizzler. I just go because it reminds me of the time when my Aunt Fanny used to take me to Sizzler. I still go to Red Lobster because my grandmother used to take us to Red Lobster on special occasions. I still go to the little cafeterias like Luby's, and I don't know what other cafeterias exist, to be honest, but because my grandmother used to take us there on Sundays. It's not necessarily because the food is good. It's just, it's nostalgic, and it is hard to break away from this nostalgia or the nostalgic value. Carlos, why do you believe that that we continue to be soul food continues to be a dominant part of Black people's lives?
I believe that the connection, as the other gentleman said earlier, the other chefs spoke about, is the connection. It brought connection. It brought family. Allow us to sit back and reflect about days and not just that, be grateful and thankful for what we're eating. And so I think that's what it is. Even now, when you go to different restaurants, there's always a soul food. I remember doing an Italian dish, using collard greens. And somebody would say, how did you do that? I did ravioli and stuff it with collard greens, because now we're finding new ways to even cook as well. If you go to some menus have mac and cheese, so now they call it lobster mac and cheese. So it's always a connection with the soul food and whatever we do. So we kind of even twisted it. The new age chef, like myself, is still twisted now. Soul food, everything makes your food unique, is coming from the soul. And I think that's a kind of a good way that things are going. So it's keeping the history, and it's still going on today, even in our fancier restaurants, so it's a twist.
Yeah, like I said, they had collard greens and chitlins on Chopped, and I was like, what they about to do with this?
What did they do with that?
One of them made a was it a chitlin stuffed collard green? One of them made, and I can't remember. I can't remember. All I know, it was interesting. Yes.
Tammi, I remember doing, when I was in New York, I did a dish with an Italian chef, and I ended up doing a black eyed pea salad dressing. I ended up doing fried chitlins on top of this to kind of garnish. Some salads may have some onion. So I took some chitlins because they wanted a twist of soul food in this dish. And I said, okay, well, hey, I'll take what I know. I took some chitlins, fried it up, put it on top, made a black eyed pea salad dressing, put it on top of the salad. Bam, there we go. We had a great meal. And the Italian part was a Capri salad. So I took a Capri salad and topped it with those southern dishes, some soul dishes, and made a wonderful dish. I mean, put me in the Smithsonian Museum, so it wasn't bad.
Yes, and we're going to talk about that later, because I'm interested in knowing how the hell you got in the Smithsonian. But we'll talk about that later. Look, yes. Everybody knows the movie Soul Food, and the Soul Food looked all good and lovely and beautiful. While we see them placing it on the table and the family congregating around it and talking on that Sunday during the Soul Food. But then the movie kind of takes a different direction when we discover Grandmama got diabetes and she's got to have her legs cut off, and then she passes away. And so these are the things that Soul Food is now being attributed to the detriment of the Black culture. And so I want to talk about, Byron, your documentary, Soul Food Junkies. What do you have to say about soul food? Is this the trek that you take in the documentary, or is there something good of it?
Well, one thing I want to mention is that cultural identity is a very big part of why we're connected to soul food. The question is, what happens when you begin to make changes to your diet or changes to your traditional soul food in ways that seek to make it healthier for yourself and for your family members? How do other people in your family react to that? How do people in your community that you live in react to you maybe becoming of a vegan soul food, person, someone who is vegan soul food, right? And so one of the things that I wanted to explore in my film, Soul Food Junkies, is that deep personal family connection. My father died from pancreatic cancer. And one of the reasons why I decided to make the film is because My father had a really, really difficult time making changes to his diet. He loved soul food. He grew up in the Deep South, Milledgeville, Georgia. My mother also grew up in Milledgeville, Georgia, Deep South. And so soul food was just a part of the food that we ate as a family. And you know, I always had concerns about my father's health, even from the time that I was a young boy, because he was always overweight, and his eating habits were not great. And so that's one of the reasons why I decided to make the film. And to answer your question about whether or not, you know, soul food is good, I think that soul food can be good for you depending on how it is prepared. You know, there are a lot of really great healthy dishes that comprise soul food, like black eyed peas, like collard greens, like kale, you know, like, you know, sweet potatoes. You know, those are all really healthy dishes that are within the soul food tradition, that if you cook them a certain way, they can be very healthy for you and very good for you. So I think what has to happen is that there has to be a transition, right? Or there has to be some sort of a transformation where people begin to consider soul food or reconsider soul food being prepared differently.
Yeah, the problem is we're gonna always be comparing it to Momo and them soul food. So even though I'm trying to transition,
it depends. I mean, I'm sorry to cut you off, but
go ahead.
I think it really depends. You know what I mean? Because the illnesses that you speak of, you know, the diabetes, the hypertension, and all those are all very real illnesses that are being faced by Black families. And that's the other thing I learned when I made my film and I started taking it on the road and showing it in front of Black audiences. There were always people in the audience. Every time I asked a question, how many people in this room have a family member who has diabetes or has, you know, some form of cancer or some form of heart disease or something like that? And no matter where I went, the hands went up, and everybody had a personal story about a loved one that they deeply cared about who had some sort of illness, and it was connected to the food that they ate. It didn't have to be soul food. Sometimes it was fast food or other, you know, processed foods, but soul food was a contributing factor to it because of the way that they prepared the food. And so when people have the will, when they see their family members dying of congestive heart failure or diabetes or, you know, losing body parts and things like that, that really motivates people to make changes while maintaining onto some of the, you know, the traditional aspects of the food.
So Craig, I'm going to talk to you, cook to cook, because you know I do a little cooking myself. I'm from the South. I'm from H-Town. You know, I got grandma. But right. Look, let's talk about how soul food is prepared, and let's take an honest approach to this. What makes it so good is that we cook all of the nutrients out of the food. When you cook collard greens, the only way that they're nice and tender and tasty is because you're cooking them down and you're cooking them for hours, which means the nutrients are cooking right out of them. And then we're adding salt into it. And then we're going to add our turkey leg. And some folks add that big old ham hock in there to taste it up, which is pork. Which, I mean, these are the things that we take it, and to credit Black people, we make it better. Everything we do, we make it better. Let's not get it twisted. But at the same time, are we making it worse, Craig?
I think that we can, you know, we have to make the changes to adapt to our health issues. But I believe soul food is here to stay, and I simply say it's not bad because I don't, even with the ailments, the illnesses that Mr. Hurt said, the diabetes and things like that. I mean, a lot of those things are generated by because it's a business. You look at all the dialysis centers. You know, you go to a doctor, the first thing they want to tell you is that you borderline diabetic, or you have this, you have that. But I don't think that's what's killing the Black community or killing people with soul food. I think it's the chemicals that are used to grow things now. See, back in the day, our ancestors grew that food. They raised chickens and they grew. Now you get a chicken in a week. You know, you're growing all these vegetables because you have a large vast of people. You got to keep up with the population. So you speed this stuff out, feeding folk, but you have to use chemicals in order to grow it or produce it. And so everybody's system can't intake all that kind of stuff. You
Yes,
know,
you make a
you and I can eat this. I mean, you and I can eat the same dish, and you get sick, and I don't get sick. It's because our immune system can adapt to all the chemicals that are being used, and therefore people get sick. They get these, congestive heart failure, diabetes, those things like that. It's not because of the soul food. It's because of what's being used to produce the food that we eat. And once we intake that, everybody can handle those types of things that goes into their bodies.
Ooh, that's an excellent point. So when we return, we're going to talk about the soul food conspiracy. It's a conspiracy, y'all. We're going to talk about it when we return on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul, where the business of being Black tonight is our attachment to soul food. Listen, if you want to see more of this content, then all you have to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you hit that notification bell. That way you can get all the updates, you can get our new videos and live shows. And don't forget to click the thumbs up if you like what we're doing. And, you want to tell us how you feel? Please tell us how you feel. There's some people in here telling us how they feel right now. Let's see. Deborah Will says, Chef Carlos, yes, lobster mac is amazing. And then our soulmate says, it can definitely be done. Healthy soul food is the key. Our soulmate Incog says the eating habits and cholesterol is what's killing us. Soul food in itself is not bad, but the issue is the preparation or quality. No. He says quantity that kills us. So I want to welcome to the show tonight celebrity chef Carlos Brown, award-winning filmmaker of the PBS documentary Soul Food Junkies, Byron Hurt, and soul food owner, restaurant of This Is It in Houston, Texas. Craig Joseph is with us. And so Craig just finished talking about how it's not soul food that's killing Black folks. That's a lie. It's a conspiracy. The man got you thinking it's our food. But here's the deal. Is that the truth? Because look, our ancestors, or not even ancestors, our grandmothers, our great-grandmothers, my grandmother lived to be 90-something years old. Her mother lived to be 98 years old. My grandfather, my great-grandfather lived to be 92 years old. So really, and we're talking about people who ate soul food on a regular. So is it really the soul food, or is it like Craig said? Craig said, listen, it's the processed foods that's killing us, not the soul food. We once lived in a time where our people grew their own food. They knew that they could just go to the backyard and grab collard greens and cook them. They can wring a chicken's neck. They knew where the chicken was coming from. It wasn't, on Purdue Farms, cooked in any, killed and cooked in any kind of way. They knew exactly how it got killed and who killed it and how it was going to be prepared, if you will. So is this a myth then? Is it a myth that soul food is killing Black people when Black people been eating soul food all this time and lived a long time, Byron?
Yeah, so I think Chef Craig makes very good points. And there's no question that the food industry has had a negative impact on our health outcomes as Black people. The life expectancy for Black people today is shorter than our grandparents, for sure. And that has a lot to do with the food industry and the food systems that have an impact on, our diet, our access to healthy food, and that sort of thing. So I think Chef Craig makes really important points. And my film actually talks about, the connection between the food industry and food systems. But I do want to say that I think that it can be all of the above, because I do think that the way that you prepare your food does matter, right? And I just remember, my grandmother made, she made some really, really, really sweet iced tea, right? And, we have a lot of people that we know, and I used to do it myself, would dump a tremendous amount of sugar on those candied yams, you know what I mean, to make them taste nice and sweet. And so there are things that we do that does contribute to, our own negative health outcomes, although you can't put all of the blame on soul food. And I think that the person in the chat who said that the quantity, right, and the quality of the food matters, and I agree. I mean, the quality and the quantity, how much you eat of it, especially if it's cooked in the more traditional ways, does have a real big impact. So, I think that we have to really take a look at how we're preparing our food It matters. And we also have to make connections to the food industry, the food system, and the kind of access that Black people have to healthy, nutrient-dense foods.
Yeah, let's be honest. These chickens are, I mean, you know, you go to Church's Chicken, that's a big ass wing. I don't know where them wings came from. You know what I'm saying?
Eagle wings.
Right, eagle wings. So there's clearly something that's being done to the food, and more people, not just Black people, more people are dying from heart disease and these things that are killing us prematurely, I would say, because it shouldn't be that way. And it's unfortunate that the Food Administration won't ban some things that they know are killing us, like, I don't know, corn syrup, maybe high fructose corn syrup. Chef Carlos, I see you like, maybe not. But I do want to ask you, since you are the grand chef and you are in the Smithsonian, let's not leave that out now. Is there a way that you can make great soul food without it killing us?
Well, I think both of the gentlemen was absolutely correct. I think we need to actually go back to educating ourselves. When I say educating ourselves, quantity makes a big difference. It makes a big deal. How much you put in, whether we're using some type of olive oil or are we using just butter? I mean, I know a lot of people say, well, cook with butter. Well, a lot of that fat inside there pretty much builds the cholesterol. And so I'm not against, making the food taste really good. What I am saying now, we should go back to the quantity and what we put in those pot, less sugar, go back to fresh herbs, and those things that can be grown. I think we've gotten to this microwave system where we have to do everything in a hurry. And then because we're doing it in a hurry, we're trying to get it out. That allows us to stop just pouring. We don't want to use a measuring cup. Well, I mean, I use a measuring cup because I think it's important that we use it. Now, I can cook without the measuring cup as well. But I think if we're talking about being healthy, we need to try to find out those healthy things. I'm doing some study on fresh vegetables and vertical gardens and those things that are making the food more healthier and still giving the same flavor. We got to get back. We got to figure those part out because yes, grandmothers didn't have measuring cups and they didn't have, they didn't go to the store to buy bagged greens. But now we're going there because nobody wants to put a vegetable, put vegetable in their backyard because the houses are so small. Nobody wants to go to the farm because everybody wants to live in the city, in the suburb. And so we don't want to go, and we don't want to teach the children that. We don't want to teach. In my camp, I take the kids to the farm because I want them to understand we got to get back to being able to raise and grow those vegetables so they can come out healthy and we can eat those healthy vegetables without cooking it too much. Because that's the other thing. We can overcook food because we feel it has to be cooked, for hours and hours, and that's not necessarily true. So I think, both gentlemen said it's so true. But I truly believe in quantity. I truly believe that we got to get to fresh herbs, fresh vegetables. I think we got to find those things. We got to put our hands back on it because that's where it is. We go back to that.
Let me ask you this. When you say fresh herbs and when you say cook with olive oil instead of butter, I want this to kind of be a teaching moment for our viewers.
Yes.
So is olive oil okay to cook with, or do we still run the risk of arteries being clogged by using
some of it? I mean, I use avocado oil. There's different oils that you can use that are healthy. Most vegan people use a lot of those type oils as well, where we can get away from going to the fat. Canola oil is horrible, but they're not going to tell you that. But it is because it's not even.
What about peanut oil?
Peanut. Only thing about peanut oil is you got to watch allergies. So a lot of people can have peanut allergies. So I don't use peanut oil in anything because then you're dealing with some people with allergy, and you're dealing with folks the risk of somebody getting killed or dying. So I don't even deal with peanut oil. I try to stick around avocado. I try to stick with olive oil. Those things are special. Now there are occasions.
Is that extra virgin olive oil or just
extra virgin olive oil? Now, and sometimes I do go to some butter. I'm not crazy about it. And my food can taste just as good as the next man one with me doing some olive oil or some avocado oil, and it still tastes just as good. And you will never know. It's just the way you prepare. We can't.
I bought avocado oil. I don't eat avocado. And so I'm wondering, will my food taste like avocado if I use avocado oil?
It won't. It won't. It really.
I use avocado oil too, and I love avocados. I mean, I absolutely love avocados. But no, it won't. Your food is not going to taste like avocados. It's just a healthier oil, for you. And it's a Mediterranean oil, and the Mediterraneans, I think, have the longest longevity when it comes to lifespans because of their diet. I mean, the Mediterranean diet is an extremely healthy diet. But can I just say something, Tammi Mac, really quickly, because I want to go back to something that you said about your grandmother, your great grandmother living to 90 and 92, 95 years old. And we have those family members in my family too. And I think that we have to really address the mythology around that, because while it is true, right, that many of our elders have lived very long lives, right? And we all probably have them in our families. My father died at 63. And I know one of the things that he would always say is that I'm going to live a long time because, my uncle, so-and-so lived to be in his 90s, right? And so I think that we can kind of take that for granted and say, well, because of my genetic makeup, I can eat whatever I want to eat. I can treat my body any old kind of way, and I'm going to live. And I think that it's a mistake to do that, because, our bodies are our temples, and, we have to really respect the fact that, nothing is promised. And so, and also, we don't know what those 90 somethings were dealing with in terms of comorbidities, other, illnesses that they had to deal with that they could manage, right? But that they lived a long time with. So I think when you change your diet and you move toward a healthier version of soul food, you increase your chances of living a healthier life with less nutritionally preventable diseases.
On that note, we're going to take a quick break and we'll come right back. We ain't forgot about you, Craig. We ain't forgot about This Is It. We coming right back on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. We'll be back, y'all. Welcome back to the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Tonight, we are talking about soul food and our attachment to it. And more importantly, because, I am a conspiracy theory knocked down them. Everybody's saying that soul food is bad for Black people and killing Black people. But tonight, we're learning that maybe it's not, maybe it is. We don't want to put it all on soul food. We have to take some personal responsibility to that. Okay, let's see. 726, Monica says grapeseed oil. Also, different temperatures require different cooking oils too. Grapeseed oil. Do you use grapeseed oil?
I do. I use grapeseed. I also use coconut oil. Those things, all those are like really good oil.
I use that on my face, that coconut oil.
You cook with it too.
I can cook and clean my face at the same time.
All the same time.
So Craig, your soul food restaurant, I want to know how you feel about these newfangled soul food restaurants that are popping up that consider themselves vegan. And my brother is from Houston, Texas. I'm from Houston, Texas. We were born and raised in the same house. He is now a vegan. I myself cannot get away from restaurants like This Is It. So how do you feel about those restaurants that claim to be soul food, but they're really vegan? Or is there a such thing? Can that happen?
I think it can happen, but by the same token, if we're talking about soul food and its heritage, I think it's two-sided. You look back at, we had one generation that did it their way. They grew things and they lived off the land, basically. Now you have this generation, you're going out to buy everything that you cook and that you eat. And so with that being said, because if you go back, people are used to what they grew up on, basically, especially our older folk. And so it's hard to tear them away from, I hear the guys talking about the different herbs and oils that we can use, and that's great. I can appreciate that. We need to be health conscious and have knowledge of that. But when you look at soul food from a cultural perspective, when you look at, these are people coming from the neighborhood. They don't get to go out to these high-end stores, grocery stores, to be able to afford these herbs and spices and different oils. They're used to one thing, Crisco oil or some other type of oil that we used to use in the old days.
Are we still using Crisco oil, Craig?
Well, it's still on the shelf, but then they use the liquefied oils too. But that's what they know, and that's what they've stuck with. And even people come to my restaurant and they dine in. You let me slip on any portion of the seasoning on anything that I cook, they're gonna let me know. You can't shortcut it. You have to be moderate in your eating and know how to do it. But I'm with being health conscious and educating our people. But everybody don't get exposed to all of this. Like we here tonight have been exposed to it. I've seen it. You get some folks never get out of that realm of how they've always done it, and so people are stuck in what we always done and how it should always taste. And even when I switched over to using turkey in my food, smoked turkey as opposed to pork, that was a big transition for us, but it was also a big transition for my customers because my grandfather used to say it's not soul food if it don't have pork in it. And so I had to make that change to put the turkey in, and now people come in because they're health conscious. People of our era saying, is that pork or is that turkey? You tell them turkey, oh, well, give me that. But it's just trying to ease and acclimate people to the changes that are being made, because if we don't be careful, soul food will go out of business.
Yeah. So you've actually been making some transitions in your recipes, but when you say that your customers notice, so you're saying that customers know the difference if you're putting a pig, I don't know what you put in it, a ham hock in your greens versus a turkey leg in your greens?
They know.
Wow.
They know. And they'll ask the question when they see the meat in those particular vegetables. They're going to ask, what type of meat is that? Is that pork or is it turkey?
So let me ask you this then, Craig. Are you selling more of your pork-laced greens or more of your turkey-laced greens?
Well, we don't do pork anymore. So when we made the transition, that's why we had to keep up with the flavor and the seasoning of the food to make it feel like it's not a difference in the taste, even though we changed from pork to turkey. But I think that's what has kept us going. But you still have those customers in there come in and saying, well, I wish you had some ham hock in it or whatever. And like, well, you kind of like two or lesser evil. You don't know who to please, the pork eater or the turkey eater. But what's
interesting is you did change to turkey and you did stop putting pork in it, which means that most of your customers are becoming a little more health conscious, sounds like.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
A lot of stuff to do. I'm sorry, Chef Carlos, go ahead.
I was going to say, and that is so important that we that have knowledge, when you know better, you do better, that we teach and train and develop, our people to what to do, what not to do. My shrimp and grits restaurant, folks used to get mad and say, hey, you got yellow grits? What happened to the white grits? Well, I have to educate them that the white grits you're eating is all bleach. It's going into your bodies, and these are the things that are causing us to come out sick. My mom, passed away just this past summer, last summer from COVID, and some other illness. But I think in our bodies, we got to educate as we know better, we do better. I've had to train people, and now everybody's getting used to eating the Yellowstone grits because they're saying, oh, that's some really good grits you got going on now. We never had that. Well, if they don't know, and all they knew was to bleach 5 minutes grits in the bag, that's what they'll continue to eat. So I think the education part, those of us that are the chefs and that are out here, we got to be able to teach people the correct things because we want our neighborhoods, we want our communities to be better. We want them to be healthy. We want them to have the best of best. And the only way that's going to happen is we educate them as we know better, so they're not eating food that's going to put them on their back or have their legs cut off. We don't want to see that. I mean, and that's, I just went back to my old community the other day, said, I'm going to train every kid in the neighborhood how to eat, because I think they do it because they don't know and nobody wants to teach them.
Now I gotta go out and buy me some yellow grits. Where the hell am I find yellow grits in LA?
You got to get some stone grits. That's right. I'm going to send you a bag of that too.
Can I say one thing? Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Byron.
I'll say really quickly.
No.
To Carlos's point, when you make small incremental changes to how you prepare your food and what you eat, how the foods that you actually eat, your palate changes. Your palate gets used to the new way of preparing and eating that food. And that, I know that happened with me, and it happens with a lot of people who make those changes. And the last thing I want to say is that in my film Soul Food Junkies, we feature a school in Newark, New Jersey, that is all about growing organic food on their campus. They have a garden on the top of the building. They grow their own food. They prepare their own food in their lunchrooms, and they serve their own food, and they eat the food that they grow. And so they are learning new ways of eating healthy in organic ways. And those children are going home and challenging their parents about the way that they prepare their food.
Yeah.
So changes are being made. The changes are being made, and there are more people who are open to eating, vegan diets and vegetarian plant-based diets than I think that we've seen in a very long time.
Craig, go ahead.
No, I mean, I agree with what he's saying. But, I wonder, do we question every restaurant we go to? Barbecue, seafood, Italian. I mean, we focusing right now on soul food, but when you go to an Italian restaurant or a seafood restaurant or wherever, you don't wonder how they cook the food. You just go in there and eat it. You expect a certain taste. And so you eat that food. But when you want to say, well, it has to be soul food that's wiping us out, well, I see white America with diabetes, congestive heart failure. I know they're not sitting around eating soul food every day. Right. I mean, people get sick, and that's the bottom line. But at the end of the day,
in the United States, we get sicker than mostly every other country in the industrial world, right? And it's because of our Western diet. And every culture has their soul food. I mean, they may not call it soul food, but they have their own culinary tradition that is causing all kinds of negative impacts in their communities as well.
We're going to take a quick break, but I hear what you're saying, Craig. What Craig is saying is barbecue is bad for you, but we're not doing a show about why barbecue is bad for you. Italians use a lot of pasta and a lot of cheese, and that's bad for you, but we're not doing a show on how Italian food is killing people. Chinese food, it's not, all that rice can't be good for you. And we're not doing a show on Chinese food. So it is interesting that the focus is always on soul food and what Black people are eating and what Black people are cooking and how our culture is killing itself. That is quite interesting. When we come back, look, it's time to wrap up, guys. When we come back, I'm going to talk about what these fellas are doing. And we're going to talk about you and the Smithsonian, Chef Carlos, when we return on the Late Show on Fox Soul. Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Chef Carlos, your shrimp and grits in the Smithsonian. How so, my brother? How so?
Awesome dish, because that shrimp and grits had culture. First of all, going back to what we talked about earlier with the Africans and the Low Country. I'm from the Low Country, and so shrimp and grits was this dish that if you didn't have anything else on the table, you knew how to take your corn, that yellow corn I was telling you about, that yellow grits, and grind it up. And you also know how to throw that net in that lake or that river and grab those shrimp and put it together. Grandma would take the flour and what we call today in the new society a roux, and put it together with some onions and put that flavor together. And so that dish was special.
So we can actually see that dish in the Smithsonian, right?
You can actually see, you see me making the dish. And I was actually making it with an Italian chef from Italy. So he was standing over me watching.
Before we get out of here, I want to run this quick trailer of Soul Food Junkies if we can. Kevin, can we get some Soul Food Junkies on here?
You ain't get your fingers greasy, man. You ain't eat no soul food.
You haven't had nothing till you have my black eyed peas.
Fried chicken.
It's comfort food. You eat it and it makes you feel better.
Good Lord, good meat. Come on, let's eat. Hallelujah.
Soul food is a repository for our history. And soul food represents Black.
At the best moments of the Black freedom struggle, when you have organizations like the Black Panthers, they understood the relationship between developing a Black nation and having healthy diets.
Where can we see Soul Food Junkies, Byron?
Well, Soul Food Junkies will be playing virtually at guess where, Tammy and Carlos?
Where?
The Smithsonian on April.
Smithsonian.
21st.
Yes.
So if you want to check it out, go to the Smithsonian's website or go to my website and I'll put up the link.
Thank you so much.
BeHurt.com.
Say that again one more time.
My website is BeHurt.com.
BeHurt.com. Y'all got it. And
Yes.
Craig, besides me coming in to support and patronize This Is It restaurant in Houston, Texas, what wrap us up? Take us on out of here. What would you like to say?
Let's not give up on soul food. Soul food is here to stay. It's been here for decades. And so we're just going to keep on. We're just going to try to perfect it to make it better, where we can all continue to eat soul food and keep our heritage going, because we don't want that to stop.
I agree. Thank you so much, gentlemen, Craig, Byron, and Chef Carlos, for being on the Tammi Mac Late Show on Fox Soul. Until tomorrow, everybody, it's a blessing to be in your box. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.